This is my 2002 Volkswagen Jetta 1.8 liter turbo. I purchased this car for $800 with a bad Tiptronic automatic transmission in it. Those of you who know Tiptronics know that this thing was designed in an Oktoberfest beer tent and executed on the good ship Bismarck. And you know what happened to the Bismarck? That transmission sank with it. It's a very poor design. And so what I did, I drove it for 5,000 miles with the bad Tiptronic in it. And I have made a minor improvement called a 5-speed transmission. The 5-speed came out of a turbo diesel Beetle, a 2002 turbo diesel Beetle. You'll see that I've left the larger automatic brake pedal in place because that allows for autocross type driving where you brake and clutch at the same time with your left foot. It allows heel braking is what it allows for by leaving that pedal in place. A little bit about the car. The RPMs of a 2-liter, for instance, if you have a Golf or Jetta Mark IV with a 2-liter engine in it and manual transmission, the tachometer is at 4,000 RPM at 80 miles an hour. The 1.8 liter turbo engine cars with Tiptronic 3,300 RPM and with a 5-speed is 3,350 RPM at 80 miles an hour. With this TDI transmission, this car, the speed at 80 miles an hour, you are doing 2,850 RPM. The RPMs of the diesel engine allow for different configuration of the gear ratios of the 5-speed transmission, because as you will notice, the gasoline powered vehicles such as this one, red line, is at 6,450 RPM versus 4,900 RPM for the diesel engine. So that allows for some very tight gear ratios, and this car is extremely fast in a stock configuration, especially with first gear. It's got a very impressive first gear in it, and I'm happy to report that at a steady 70 miles an hour, I could actually coax 39 miles to the gallon out of this car. I just coaxed 39, it was actually 39.3. Now that's not going to happen very often, but I did keep my foot out of it. One thing about my little Berlin ghetto cruiser here is it is a nimble little car, and one of the things that had to be done for the conversion is some wiring changes. I'm going to point to where I ran a small harness from the vehicle speed sensor down on the transmission up to, I've removed the cabin air filter housing for clarity purposes, run into the TCM for the automatic transmission. Since there's no automatic transmission in place, you end up with a harness down here that is no longer used, and so therefore there's no vehicle speed sensor. So you have to route the vehicle speed sensor to pin number 56 of the transmission control module, and also you have to supply a hot in the ground. That makes the speedometer work. Now then, you'll have a working speedometer, but unless you run a separate wire over to pin number 3 on the back of the speedometer, the ECM, which is located in here next to the TCM, has no idea what the speed of the car is. So you still end up with some very lousy fuel mileage. This thing will drink gas if you do not have the VSS hooked up and a plausible signal going to the ECM. So you have to route a couple of wires, which is fairly simple to do. The other thing that I've done is I've left the park neutral safety switch in place on this car, and I sealed the switch in the park position. This allows the car to start without having to reconfigure the starter. Now, the donor car was a 2002 Beetle TDI. I purchased the Beetle TDI with a bad engine for $500. I sold the bad engine to somebody, one of the diesel engine parts, mainly the turbo and the cylinder head. I sold that for $500. So What I took out of the TDI was the transmission, the clutch, pressure plate, throwout bearing, and flywheel, starter, gear shift linkages, and axles. All components went into this car to include the clutch master cylinder and the clutch slave cylinder and the hoses, the related hoses. So all pieces, including the front axles, came out of the 2002 Beetle TDI. The TDI just happened to have a brand new clutch, pressure plate, throwout bearing, slave cylinder, and flywheel with about 300 miles on them, so they have ended up in my beloved little Jetta. By selling all the components off of the TDI and the body of the TDI, I did some creative paperwork with figures, and you take what I paid for this car, which was $800, and then what I sold, all the parts off, I sold off of the TDI to include the body itself. What I have ended up with is I have a grand total of $569.43 in this Jetta, which includes registering it in the state of Tennessee. And that was really some creative paperwork on my part doing that. And so what I've got is a streetable little car that is fun to drive, and I plan on showing some more videos on down the road. A couple other things. This is my first video attempt, and I just wanted to show you my little Berlin ghetto cruiser. And watch for future videos in the future. And oh, by the way, my speeds, you can actually use a Garmin GPS to measure your speeds until you have your speedometer hooked up. So the Garmin and the Tennessee Highway Patrol have verified. Thank you.